with the military now occupying Washington, D.C., and literally harassing people for smoking on their own porch, we find out that it was corporate lobbyists who had been egging on the president to take over the nation's capital. According to a report on Tuesday posted in the Lever, these lobbyists, in some cases, had posed as small business owners allegedly besieged by crime. Now, an example of that came in the form of a letter published by Axios with the headline, "Downtown DC business leaders demand crime solutions." Yes, we are small businesses that are being infected by crime, and we want Trump to do something. We want him to send in the troops. Now, it turns out that it ain't mom and pop shops. Oh, no. The Lever notes that far from being a group of beleaguered small businesses, the letter signatories included some of the biggest trade groups on K Street. Quote, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which boasts its status as the largest business organization in the world, the National Retail Federation, a powerful retail alliance representing giants like Walmart and Target, definitely not your small businesses, right? Airlines for America, which represents major U.S. airlines, among many others. These lobbying juggernauts had spent tens of millions of dollars every year lobbying federal lawmakers to get their way in Washington, and one of the things that they wanted was more police presence in D.C. They wanted this police crackdown, and now they've got it. That is despite the fact that crime is actually at a 30-year low in the city. As a press release from the U.S. Attorney's Office released on July 3rd, 2025, stated, homicides in D.C. are down 32%, robberies down 39%, armed carjackings down 53%. I know, you should tell that to big balls, right? I'm sorry. I know it's not a funny situation, but it's also kind of funny. Assaults with a dangerous weapon down 27% when compared with 2023 levels. And yet, with crime down, these lobbying groups for gigantic corporations are like, you know what we need in DC? We need some authoritarian fascism. That's right. Here's the reality of the situation. Business leaders, the business community, has and always will support fascism. Why? Because it helps them. In fascism, they get tax cuts and deregulation, while they're able to watch the cops crush any protests that might be against, I don't know, low wages and bad working conditions. Now, in DC, by the way, business groups and police unions have helped to thwart efforts from the DC City Council to try to rewrite the city's criminal code to eliminate some of the outdated provisions that they have. For example, getting rid of some of the mandatory minimum sentences and to even reduce sentences for some non-violent offenses. They didn't like that, though. Okay, these business communities. Oh, no. Now, doing all that would actually have a benefit of reducing the prison population. It's funny because in America, we call ourselves the land of the free, right? While having the most people in prison. That doesn't make any sense, does it? But actually, when you look at it from the business perspective, it does. You see, slavery is legal when you use prison labor. That's right. See, slavery was abolished except for one particular group, and that, my friends, is prisoners. Prison labor is completely legal. And guess who that benefits? Corporations, of course. Not only that, but for-profit prisons. They get paid for every person that is put behind bars. That is a perverse incentive that incentivizes tough-on-crime laws in order to fill those prison beds, which fills prison CEOs' pockets. Ah, yes. And look, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser had vetoed those reforms back in 2023. But she was overridden by the city council. However, Democrats, they turned around and helped Republicans pass a law that killed those reforms, which was signed by then President Joe Biden, who was the tough on crime president. I know. That is despite, look, if you're on a diet of only watching Fox News and right-wing talking points, you'd be like, oh, Democrat President Joe Biden, no, he loves crime. Yes, he loves crime. He's out there doing crime right now. Yeah, he's criming with those gangs. He's showing up and doing all sorts of crime all the time. Just crime everywhere. Crime. Yeah, if you're watching propaganda, okay, but that's not the reality, okay? No, Democrats are actually way tougher on crime than Republicans because we literally have a criminal in office right now. Mr. 34 felonies, okay? They're doing crime all the time. The crime, turns out, it's coming from inside the house. The call is the White House. So, yes, Democrats are a barrier to criminal justice reform. And they will always, as a party, defend mass incarceration and the protection of these very same corporations that profit off of jailing and brutalizing the people. In fact, in 2024, groups like the Chamber of Commerce have pushed something called the Secure D.C. Bill in City Council, which had expanded pretrial detentions, weakened restrictions on chokeholds, and limited public access to police disciplinary records. Because how dare you find out if a police officer has, been caught brutalizing people before, doing police brutality? Business groups, however, which again, donate to Democrats too, a lot of these changes is necessary to fight their post-pandemic, which, by the way, we're still in it. We've never actually left the pandemic. Crime spike that DC was experiencing, even though, as I had mentioned before, crime rates in DC have fallen to historic lows. But see, it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, it is not about fighting crime. Never has been. In fact, in a statement on Monday, the D.C. Chamber of Commerce described itself as a strong supporter of the Home Rule Act, which Trump used to enact this federal takeover. The Washington Business Journal had quoted multiple consultancy executives, including Yaman Coxum. Whoa, that's a bit of a Freudian slip there. He explained that it is about time somebody did something to make DC great again. And Kirk McLaren, who said if local leaders won't protect residents and businesses, let's see if the federal government will step in to do what's necessary to create a safe and prosperous city. Look, again, it's not about safety. It is not about fighting crime. What it's about is crushing protests and to scare the average working person to basically staying in line, keeping their heads down, going to work while fascism takes over every facet of our waking lives. The economic elites love fascism. And so when I tell you that, this is exactly what I mean. And yes, they will absolutely lie in order to promote fascism, pretending to be mom and pop shops facing, crime, so much crime, when in reality, these are the companies that actually commit the biggest crimes in America, the ones that cost working class people the most, which is the biggest crime in America is wage theft. That's right. Every year, millions of workers, working class people, law-abiding, go in every day, work their asses off across this country, and their bosses steal from them, steal from their paychecks. Okay? These workers are not paid the full wages to which they are legally entitled for the work that they have done. They're doing what they're supposed to do. Whether it be not paying, legal minimum wage to their workers, paying them less, actually, not paying overtime that they are owed, making workers work off the clock so they don't get paid, taking away their legally entitled meal breaks, literally stealing money from their paychecks, or intentionally misclassifying them as independent contractors to try to avoid having to pay them benefits or overtime, or to, again, avoid paying them minimum wage. Look, it is estimated that workers throughout this country lose about $15 billion annually from just minimum wage violations alone. Wage theft is the largest amount of theft in this country. Nobody talks about it. Nobody talks about the billions of dollars stolen from workers by their employers every single year. That is a crime. Mainstream media never talks about that. Oh, no, of course not. Local news never talks about wage theft. Never. You know what they talk about? They talk about crime consistently, all the time. Crime. Local news is what you tune into to hear about the local crime wave that isn't actually happening. Okay? Again, if it bleeds, it leads. And of course, that's what they do. And a lot of these local news stations, by the way, are also owned by, well, you guessed it, right-wing organizations. Sinclair Broadcasting, which is a propaganda outlet that is promoting Trump and right-wing, basically the right wing, okay, and their talking points. And so that's it. So yes, mainstream media doesn't talk about wage theft. Right-wing media never talks about wage theft. Right-wing never addresses wage theft because, well, they're the ones that are doing the wage theft. I mean, yeah. And so that's who they work for too. Okay. And so it's no surprise to see that they ignore that kind of crime, while of course claiming that all the other kinds of crime is why we should now have a personal army created for Donald Trump to come in and take over, not just Washington, D.C., but all these other cities that have, and you're going to be shocked to find this out too, large minority populations and Democrats. Yeah. So we see what's going on. We see the reality, and it stinks. It stinks a lot like fascism. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon in order to get notified whenever a new video is released. And if you want to support independent, progressive media through this difficult time where it seems like everybody is shutting down, you can become a member on our YouTube page, you can become a subscriber on Facebook, or you can go to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Thank you.